A searing pain exploded deep in my gut, leaving me stunned for an instant. My gaze locked onto Leo, shoved out hard by Gordon. A zombie's reeking fangs grazed Leo's thin shoulder. Dark red blood instantly soaked his faded school uniform. In his eyes, as he turned back to me, there was terror and confusion. The words stuck in his throat, never spoken, pierced my heart like needles. Uncle Gordon, who used to wear a simple, honest smile, now had only greed and cruelty on his face. Beside him, Ray from property management clutched a pile of supplies looted from our home, his shifty eyes filled with smug satisfaction. Those two were clearly after what I'd hidden, using the chaos of the coming apocalypse to sacrifice us for their own gain. The zombies' snarls grew closer. Ray kicked me to the ground. My knees slammed into the concrete, the pain like scraping bone. As my vision blurred, I watched Leo get surrounded by zombies, and watched Gordon and Ray turn and bolt into the stairwell. The heavy iron doors slammed shut, sealing off every sound outside, leaving only Leo's desperate struggle and the sickening sounds of zombies tearing into him, echoing in my ears. Hatred coiled around my heart like fast-growing poison ivy. I used every last bit of strength to crawl toward him, but a zombie's claws ripped straight through my shoulder. As searing pain spread through my body, boundless darkness swallowed my consciousness whole. A familiar, clear voice sounded in my ear, dragging me out of the nightmare. I snapped my eyes open. Harsh sunlight streamed through the gap in the curtains, falling on Leo's boyish face. He wore a clean school uniform, hair soft and neat, eyes full of concern. He had no wounds at all, nor the slightest fear. He stood before me, completely unharmed. I grabbed his wrist. My fingertips touched his warm skin. The reality of it almost made me cry. I looked down at my shoulder, smooth and flawless. No wounds from sharp claws. Then I glanced at the calendar by the bed. The bright red July 15th stung my eyes. I've been reborn. Back to before the global zombie virus outbreak. 30 whole days. Back to the days when Leo was still beside me, and the hypocritical masks of Gordon and Ray hadn't yet been torn off. Leo was a little uncomfortable with my grip, but he didn't struggle. He even reached out and gently touched my forehead, worried about me. I took a deep breath, suppressing the surging emotions. I let go and ruffled his hair. In a hoarse voice, I soothed him, saying I just had a bad dream. Then I rushed him to get ready for school. Watching Leo turn and disappear into the bathroom, I balled my fists. The pain of my nails digging into my palms constantly reminded me that it wasn't a dream, and my brutal death in my past life was all too real. Gordon's betrayal, Ray's fawning, and the look in Leo's eyes before his death were burned into my soul. This time, I will never let tragedy repeat. I'll do whatever it takes to protect Leo, and I'll make those two bastards pay in blood. On the way to drop Leo off at school, I called the real estate agent. The apartment my parents left us is in the middle of the complex. When the apocalypse hits, it'll be a zombie hotspot. No way we can stay there long. More importantly, I need to cash out everything, fast, stock up on supplies, and turn a place into a safe house. The agent told me stiffly, it's in a great location. The market price could reach $300,000. But if you sell in a hurry, the max is $250,000. The full payment will take at least 3 days to hit your account. I said yes without a second thought. In the apocalypse, money is nothing but paper. Only supplies and safety keep you alive. After hanging up with the agent, I hit up the pawn shop too. I packed up all the jewelry and paintings my parents left and sent them over. Those things full of memories are nothing compared to Leo's safety. After a busy morning, I scraped together $350,000 in cash, enough to kick off the initial prep work. In the afternoon, I headed straight to the building supply market. I knew exactly what I wanted. The abandoned equipment room in the underground parking lot. In my past life, I stumbled upon it. It's about 100 square feet, tucked away in the farthest corner of the parking lot, blocked by junk. Barely anyone notices it. Plus, the equipment room's walls are reinforced concrete, perfect for load-bearing and soundproofing. With a little work, it'd make the perfect survival base. I pointed at the list and ordered 10 thick steel plates from the boss, 20 bags of cement, 10 bags of sand, plus a hammer drill, a welder, a tarp, and soundproofing material. The works. The more supplies, the better. Deliver them to our underground parking lot tomorrow morning. I'll point out the spot on site. The owner saw a young girl buying all this stuff and his jaw nearly dropped. But money is money, so he didn't ask questions. He nodded eagerly. He even offered to send someone to set it all up. I flat out refused. The fewer people who know about my plan, the safer it is. Gordon and Ray live in this complex. Ray's in property management. He knows every nook and cranny of the complex. I've got to be extra careful. After buying building materials, I went from big supermarkets to wholesale markets, stocking up like crazy. There, I bought 50 bags of compressed biscuits, canned food, vacuum-packed meat and vegetables. It filled a whole truck to the brim. Plus drinking water, toilet paper, toiletries, and all kinds of everyday medicine. Anything I could think of, I stockpiled as much as I could. I didn't leave anything out. By evening, the supplies finally made it to the underground parking lot. I found a secluded corner to stack them for now. Then I started cleaning out the equipment room. It was packed with discarded pipes and motors, with dust thick enough to cover my ankles. I put on a mask and gloves and hauled the junk out piece by piece. I was soaked in sweat. My arms were so sore I couldn't lift them. But whenever I thought of Leo, I felt a surge of strength again. While cleaning a corner, my hand touched something cold and hard. I cleared the junk and saw it was a dark gold crystal the size of a fist. It gave off a faint glow. It was translucent and warm to the touch. Clearly, it wasn't an ordinary stone. I was curious, so I picked it up. The moment it was in my hand, the crystal suddenly blazed with searing light. It sank into my skin through the lines of my palm. I gasped. Instinctively, I tried to throw it away, but found the crystal was gone. In its place, there was a weird wriggling feeling in my belly. It felt like something was taking root and growing inside me. Suddenly, a faint tremor ran through my mind, and then a vague consciousness flooded in, telling me the symbiotic pouch space had been activated. It was binding to its host, Wendy. A moment later, it confirmed the binding was successful. I stood there, stunned. My hand went to my belly. There was no bulge, yet I could clearly feel the space's presence. It felt like an other-dimensional organ attached to my stomach, yet elastic, with a faint pulse. It gradually fell into sync with my heartbeat. The space then relayed its core functions. It could devour, store, provide nutrient fluid, and digest. Mutation functions would unlock gradually as it grows. The symbiotic rule: it needs to be fed zombie crystals to stay active. If it's not fed, it'll trigger a backlash. Host and space are bound in life and death. They cannot be separated. Zombie crystals. My heart sank. You can only get this after the apocalypse breaks out, by killing zombies. In other words, this space is both my greatest asset and a shackle hanging over my head. It will force me to actively face those man-eating monsters. I tried to focus on putting a scrap pipe next to me into the space. The next second, the pipe vanished into thin air, and I could clearly see it was stored inside the symbiotic pouch space, floating quietly. I tried to take it out again. The pipe instantly reappeared in my hand. This amazing ability made me ecstatic. With this space, the problem of storing supplies was completely solved, and I could take it with me, more convenient than any storage container. I immediately got to work. I stored the piled supplies into the space one by one. Looking at the empty parking lot, I felt a little relieved. That night, I slept in the equipment room and started renovating it. I used a hammer drill to make holes in the wall. After fixing steel plates, I reinforced them with cement. I laid 3 layers of waterproof tarp on the floor to prevent moisture. I lined the walls with acoustic padding to deaden the noise. At the entrance, I made a hidden steel plate door and piled junk outside to disguise it. From the outside, it looked no different from the original abandoned equipment room. I worked until the wee hours. I leaned against the wall corner to rest. Suddenly, I felt a faint hunger pang in my belly. It wasn't my own hunger. It was the symbiotic space making a demand. The space alerted me that energy was low. I needed to feed it crystals as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would trigger a mild backlash. I frowned. There are no zombies yet, so of course there are no crystals. I just have to bear with it for now. I'll figure something out after the apocalypse breaks out. For the next 20-odd days, I was working against the clock to prepare. Every morning, after taking Leo to school, I threw myself into stocking up on supplies and improving the base. In the equipment room, I installed solar batteries and LED lights. I rigged up a small water filter. Combined with the drinking water in the space, it formed a double safeguard. I got a fire axe, a machete, and a crossbow as weapons. I also downloaded martial arts videos from the internet. Every day, I trained my arms hard with those videos. I built up muscle. My reflexes also got way faster. Sure enough, Gordon came looking for me. He was carrying a basket of fruit. He had that trademark simple grin plastered on his face. He knocked on my door. His eyes swept over the few supplies still in the living room. Greed flashed in his eyes, but he quickly hid it, faking concern. He rattled on about being my uncle and taking care of me and Leo. I sneered inside, but kept a straight face. I told him I was planning to sell the house and move. Gordon pretended to look surprised. He made a show of praising the location. It'd be a shame to sell. He even offered to lend me money, playing the good guy. But really, he was fishing for my real intentions. I told him coldly, I've already signed with the realtor, so, no need to bother him, and then I showed him. Gordon got shot down, his face darkened, but he didn't say anything more. Before leaving, he faked a few more concerned words, but you could see the scheming in his eyes. I watched his back as he left. I gripped the machete in my hand tightly. I knew he had started testing me. Once the apocalypse hits, he'll strike without hesitation. Besides Gordon, Ray also came by once. Dressed in his property management uniform, he claimed to be checking fire equipment. He paced around my building several times. He even deliberately glanced toward the underground parking lot. I watched him from behind the curtain, knowing full well Gordon must have gotten to him. He came to snoop on my plans. August 14th, the day before the apocalypse. I went to school to pick up Leo. I took him straight to the equipment room in the underground parking lot. Leo stared at the cramped space, baffled. I held his hand and said seriously, "Something terrible is going to happen tomorrow. Many people will turn into flesh-eating monsters. This place is the safe house. We'll stay here until the storm passes." Leo is young, but he's very sensible. He didn't pry, just nodded. I took out some supplies from the space. I laid down a mattress and set out snacks and water, and I put the weapons within arm's reach. At night, I held Leo and lay in bed. I didn't close my eyes all night. The hunger from the space in my gut grew stronger. Mild cramps kept coming and going, a constant reminder of the crisis ahead. At 3 a.m. on August 15th, a piercing scream tore through the night. Then came the chaotic screams and the sound of heavy things crashing down. The apocalypse arrived right on schedule. Leo was jolted awake, trembling all over, clinging tightly to my arm. I covered his mouth, signaling for him to stay quiet, then crept to the door and peered through the gap. The parking lot was in chaos. Several blood-soaked, stiff-moving zombies were chasing and biting the panicked. Those people were once residents of the neighborhood, but now they had become mindless monsters. The rancid smell seeped through the crack, making me want to throw up. The cramping in my abdomen suddenly worsened, more intense than any time before, like countless needles stabbing my guts. Space emergency alert, energy is critically low, and moderate backlash has been triggered. My vitality is draining fast, and I need to feed the space crystals immediately. I doubled over in pain, cold sweat soaking my clothes instantly. I began to hallucinate. The image of Leo surrounded by zombies surfaced again, his cries and zombie roars filling my ears. Leo steadied me, panic written all over his face, wanting to help but not knowing how. I gritted my teeth and pushed him away, grabbed the machete beside me, and told him to stay here and not come out. "No matter what you hear, don't open the door. I have to go kill zombies for crystals, or else not only will I die, but Leo, without my protection, will be doomed too." Gently pushing open the hidden door, I bent low and slipped into the darkness. Zombies were still wandering the parking lot. Their eyesight seemed poor, and they relied mainly on sound and smell to navigate. I held my breath, lightened my steps, and crept toward the nearest zombie. It was a middle-aged male zombie, his face ashen and gray, blood at the corner of his mouth, and his arms twisted at unnatural angles. I gripped the machete, and as he turned, I swung hard at his head, and the blade sliced into bone with a grating sound. The zombie froze for a moment. Then it slowly collapsed to the ground. The next second, a rice-sized white crystal floated out of its head. It gave off a faint glow. I immediately reached out to grab it. The crystal had barely touched my fingertip when the symbiotic space sucked it in. Fed one D-tier crystal to the space. Spatial activity slightly increased. The backlash symptoms have eased a bit. Sure enough, the cramps in my gut eased a bit. I breathed a sigh of relief. I immediately dove into the next hunt. 1, 2, 3. Relying on my hard-earned fighting skills and my knowledge of zombies, I wove through the parking lot, quick and agile. Every swing of my blade landed dead center on a zombie's head. I wasted no extra energy, but more and more zombies kept coming. With one careless slip, a zombie's nail raked my arm. Several bloody scratches appeared instantly. The pain snapped me back to reality. I spun around and cut that zombie down. I grabbed the crystal. After feeding it to the space, I quickly hid behind a pillar to catch my breath. The wound on my arm burned fiercely. I was just about to grab a tourniquet from the space when a warm liquid suddenly surged up from my gut and flooded my mouth. It was nutrient fluid from the space. I swallowed it instinctively. Then the wound on my arm started healing right before my eyes. The ugly bloody marks soon faded into faint red lines. Nutrient fluid, applied externally, it speeds up wound healing. Taken internally, it can replace food. Current secretion efficiency is low. The reason is insufficient crystals. This surprise had me stunned and thrilled. This nutrient fluid is a total lifesaver in the apocalypse. The slaughter went on for over an hour. I killed 15 zombies in all, and I grabbed 15 low-tier crystals. The hunger in my gut was completely gone. The space became a bit more active. I could even faintly feel it wriggling, like it was satisfied. I didn't dare linger. While it was still dark, I slipped back to the equipment room. Leo immediately rushed over. Seeing the faint red marks on my arm, his eyes instantly went red. His face was full of heartache. I patted his head, reassuring him the wound was fine. Then I told him, "I've got a secret to share." I told him all about my symbiotic pouch space, every last detail, including the space's rules and functions, and how I'd just taken down zombies and scored crystals. Leo was floored. It took him a while to snap out of it. He reached out and gently touched my belly. His face was full of curiosity. I nodded. I focused my mind. I took a crystal out of the space. I placed it in his hand, so he could feel it for himself. Leo held the crystal carefully. His eyes sparkled with wonder. There wasn't a trace of fear. He even offered to help me hunt zombies. I refused right away. The apocalypse is way too dangerous. I told him the best way to help me was to stay safe. Leo looked down, mumbling softly, that he didn't want me risking it alone. My heart warmed. I hugged him and promised that when he was a little older, I'd take him to fight by my side. For now, we'll stay put, until this blows over. Over the next few days, late every night, I went out to hunt zombies, grab crystals, and feed the space. The space's capacity slowly expanded as I fed it. It went from 100 to 200 square feet. The space was producing a lot more nutrient fluid, which gave me a much better shot at survival. But my actions caught Gordon and Ray's attention. They were in the underground parking lot, where they'd set up a temporary base. They'd rounded up about a dozen residents from the neighborhood. They relied on Ray's keys and the small stockpile Gordon had stashed. They managed to keep things together for now. That night, after I was done hunting zombies, I was heading back to the equipment room. Suddenly, I overheard Gordon and Ray talking nearby. Gordon sounded urgent, convinced I was nearby. He also said I go out every night and always come back without a scratch, so I must be hiding something valuable. Ray, though, was dead sure. He'd checked the parking lot cameras, and even though most were dead, he had seen me walk into that abandoned equipment room. He was sure I'd stashed all my supplies and valuables inside that room. Gordon's voice dripped with greed. He said they'd come for me the next day, and they planned to grab Leo and use him as bait. I ducked behind a pillar, my nails digging into my palms until they turned white. I could barely contain my hatred. How dare they come after Leo? They were digging their own graves. Back at the equipment room, I told Leo everything. Leo was shaking with fear, but he forced himself to stay calm. He said we had the space and weapons, so we didn't need to be scared. I nodded. I already had a plan in mind. Since they wanted to rob me, I'd set a trap for them, and make them pay. The next morning, I deliberately left a trace at the equipment room door, half a bottle of water. Then I took Leo and hid in the space. I kept just a sliver of awareness on the outside. Before long, Gordon and Ray showed up with a few men and found the place. Ray spotted the half bottle of water right away. He smirked, his hunch right. Gordon immediately had the men move the clutter aside, revealing the steel door behind it, and ordered them to break the door open. Several men rammed the door together. The sturdy steel door didn't budge. Ray, losing patience, said he'd go get a cutter, and left with some of the men for now. Taking advantage of this gap, I came out of the space and set a trap by the door. I took the mutant plant I'd found earlier while hunting zombies, and crushed it. I smeared its sap on the steel door. This mutant plant's sap has a powerful numbing effect. Once it touches skin, it makes the whole body go stiff. They can't move a muscle. With the trap set, I went back into the space. Leo was holding my hand tight. He whispered to ask if the trap would work, and I patted his hand to calm him down. Then I watched outside, my eyes cold. Soon Ray came back with the cutter. He ran it himself. The cutter screeched loudly. A crack soon appeared on the steel door. Just then, his hand accidentally touched the mutant plant sap on the door. Ray frowned, feeling his hand tingle. Then numbness raced through his body. The cutter clattered to the ground. He fell stiffly to the ground. Couldn't move a muscle. Gordon flinched. He rushed over to help him up, but he tripped over Ray's stiff body. Chaos broke out instantly. The other men panicked too, and backed away. I grabbed the chance and stepped out of the space with Leo. I gripped my machete and charged forward. Gordon was shocked and furious. He grabbed a steel pipe off the ground and swung at me. I sidestepped. I swung my machete at his arm. The blade hit its mark. Blood sprayed out instantly. Gordon screamed and collapsed. The remaining men were terrified out of their wits, and bolted. I didn't chase them. Instead, I walked up to Ray. He was frozen stiff. His eyes were wide with fear, but he couldn't even speak. Suddenly, the space alerted. Mutant plant sap detected. It can now devour targets and digest them. Random item generation. But it warns, digesting living beings carries unknown risks. May trigger spatial backlash. I hesitated. Devouring Ray comes with risks, but it'll end the threat for good. Plus, I can get items. Worth a shot. I focused my mind. I made the symbiotic space devour Ray. Ray's body was instantly wrapped in an invisible force and slowly vanished into thin air. Then, a violent churning hit my gut. Stronger than anything I'd ever felt from digesting. The cramps hit again. Chaotic hallucinations flashed before my eyes. Ray's face, a zombie's face, Leo's face, all tangled together. My ears filled with chaotic noise. Leo was kneeling beside me, holding me tight, calling out to me in panic. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to stay standing. About 10 minutes later, the churning and cramping gradually faded. A dark purple pill floated out of the space and landed in my hand. The space announced, living being digested. A paralysis pill was randomly generated from the human. When taken, it can put a target into deep paralysis. It lasts for an hour. Spatial activity increased slightly. New function unlocked. The weak defense barrier requires crystals to maintain. I sighed in relief. I stored the paralysis pill in the space. Finally, I looked at Gordon lying on the ground. Gordon clutched his bleeding arm. His eyes were full of despair and defiance. When he saw me look at him, he dropped to his knees and begged. He told me we were family. He begged me to spare his life. I let out a cold laugh. In my past life, he shoved Leo to the zombies. When he looted our supplies, he never thought of us as family then. I walked closer and closer. I crouched down and grabbed his chin, forcing him to meet my eyes. I told him what he owed us, he'd repay today. Gordon was scared out of his wits. He struggled desperately and begged for mercy. I didn't soften. I slashed his leg with my knife, so he couldn't escape. Then I dragged him to the middle of the parking lot. I untied the tourniquet on his arm. The scent of blood quickly drew the nearby zombies. Gordon's screams grew more and more distant, until they were swallowed by the zombies' roars. I stood there watching the chaos. I felt nothing, only the calm after revenge. The grudge from my past life was finally avenged. Leo walked over and gently wrapped his arms around my waist. He told me it was all over. I turned around and hugged him. The tears I'd been holding back finally spilled over. With Gordon and Ray out of the way, Leo and I could finally relax in the equipment room. In the days that followed, I went out every day to hunt zombies, not only to get crystals to maintain spatial activity, but also to find high-tier crystals to unlock more functions of the space, to better ensure our survival. As I killed more and more zombies, I ran into high-tier zombies that were faster and stronger than common zombies and had tougher skin, making them hard to take down. But after killing them, I could get light blue mid-tier crystals or even deep blue high-tier crystals, which helped a lot with spatial advancement, and that day, I was on level B2 of the parking garage and ran into a high-tier zombie that was over 6 feet tall, with its body covered in a hard black shell. It was incredibly strong, as one punch could dent a concrete wall, and I fought it off for a long time. While its claws raked me in several places, I could only rely on the space's nutrient fluid to barely keep my strength up, making it really tough. But just when I was about to give out, I suddenly remembered the defense barrier function the space had unlocked. So I focused my mind at once and used up 3 high-tier crystals to activate the defense barrier as pale golden illumination enveloped me. The zombie's fist slammed into the light with a loud bang and was thrown back, so I seized the moment, and as the zombie staggered back, I swung my blade hard at its head, and the blade cut through the hard shell deep into its skull, so the zombie froze, and then slowly crumpled to the ground, while a deep blue high-tier crystal drifted out of its head and was instantly consumed by the space, prompting the system voice to announce 1 high-tier crystal fed. As spatial activity surged, defense barrier strength increased, and a new crystal conversion function unlocked that can convert low-tier crystals into mid-tier ones at a ratio of 3:1, letting me breathe a sigh of relief as I leaned against the wall to rest. The space's nutrient fluid gushed out, slowly healing my wounds, and with the defense barrier and crystal conversion, my chances of surviving the apocalypse just went way up. Back in the equipment room, Leo saw my wounds. He was so heartbroken, tears just streamed down his face. He told me not to go to dangerous places like that anymore. I patted his head. I took that high-tier crystal, converted it into a mid-tier one, and showed it to him. I told him the space had gotten stronger again. We'd be safer from now on. I reassured him. Leo nodded. He handed me the compressed biscuit. He told me to hurry and get my strength back. Days went by. It had been 60 days since the apocalypse broke out. Leo and I were doing all right in the equipment room. The space was packed with supplies and crystals. The defense barrier was growing stronger too. But the world outside was getting more and more chaotic. The number of zombies kept growing. Every now and then, we could still hear distant explosions and gunfire, a sign things were getting worse. One morning, I was about to head out and hunt zombies. Suddenly, I heard a weird acoustic wave outside. It was low and deep, yet it cut right through the walls, making the whole parking lot tremble slightly. Then, the zombies that had been roaming suddenly stopped dead. The vicious glint in their eyes slowly faded. All that was left was confusion and pain. The space alerted that a special acoustic wave was detected. Reduced zombie activity. Initial consciousness recovery. I was puzzled. Was someone clearing out the zombies? Just then, in the distance, I heard car horns and a broadcast, telling survivors that the government's rescue team was using harmonic waves to purify the zombie virus, awakening the human consciousness in the infected, and telling everyone to stay in safe places, and not to go outside. The rescue team will check everyone one by one. Rescue. The rescue team is here. Leo and I exchanged a glance, and we both saw surprise and excitement in each other's eyes. We're finally saved. I immediately led Leo out of the equipment room, and headed toward the broadcast. Along the way, I saw many zombies writhing in agony. Some were even slowly turning back into humans. Though weak, they were no longer aggressive. We reached the parking lot entrance. I saw several military trucks parked there. Soldiers in protective suits were helping the infected who had regained consciousness. Seeing us, a soldier immediately walked over, with a gentle smile on his face, asking if we were okay. After confirming we were survivors, he brought us onto the truck. There were several other survivors on the truck. Every face showed the relief of surviving. The truck slowly drove away from the neighborhood, heading toward the safe zone. Sunlight streamed through the window, warm and bright. Leo rested his head on my shoulder, and gradually fell asleep. I looked at his peaceful sleeping face, and touched my belly. The symbiotic space rippled quietly, as if it were sharing this feeling with me. The apocalypse wasn't completely over yet. There might be more challenges ahead, but I was no longer afraid because I had Leo, the symbiotic space, and the hope to live again. Outside the window, the morning light was faint, illuminating the road ahead. Our new life was just beginning. We rode in a military truck for about 2 hours. We finally made it to the safe zone. The safe zone is built in an abandoned industrial park. It's surrounded by a steel perimeter wall about 10 feet high. Soldiers stand guard at the entrance. Everyone coming and going is strictly checked. Security is very tight. After getting off, we were led to the registration area. Soldiers registered our names and ages one by one. Physical condition. They also ran a virus test on us. After confirming we weren't infected, they assigned us temporary housing. A small room of about 100 square feet. It had 2 bunk beds, a desk and 2 chairs. It was basic, but compared to the equipment room in the underground parking lot, it was already much better. Leo touched the soft bedding. A smile he hadn't worn in ages spread across his face. He said we finally had a decent place to live. I nodded and smiled. I took out some daily necessities from the space to set the room up a bit. Although the safe zone hands out supplies, the quantities are limited, and the quality is poor too. Our own stuff gives us more peace of mind. Over the next few days, Leo and I gradually got used to life in the safe zone. Every morning, the safe zone distributes set amounts of food and water. In the mornings, survivors are organized for physical training and virus protection briefings. The afternoons are free time. Survivors can use the supplies they've collected to trade with others for what they need. I used my free time to go to the safe zone's barter market. The market was bustling. Some were selling clothes and medicine collected from outside. Others sold crystals from zombies they'd killed. Still others traded handmade goods for food. I took out a few D-tier crystals and traded them for some common medicines and Leo's favorite snacks. Meanwhile, I used the chance to ask around about the safe zone. From other survivors, I learned that this safe zone was temporarily set up by the government. There are currently over 2,000 survivors. The safe zone supplies mainly come from the rescue team's scavenging runs and from survivors' voluntary contributions. Recently, the rescue team sent out to find supplies has encountered more and more high-tier zombies. Their losses have been heavy. As a result, supplies have become increasingly scarce. Moreover, all is not peaceful inside the safe zone. There are several powerful survivor factions. They often bully the weak and steal supplies. Although the soldiers in the safe zone step in to intervene, they're short-handed. It's hard for them to handle everything. Many survivors are resentful but stay silent. I silently stayed on alert. It seems even in the safe zone, we can't let our guard down. We have to stay vigilant at all times to protect ourselves and Leo. Back at the shelter, I told Leo everything I'd found out. Leo frowned. He worried we'd end up in danger again. I patted his head. I told him that as long as we didn't cause trouble and kept getting stronger, we'd be fine. And the space keeps getting stronger too. As long as we feed it enough high-tier crystals, it'll unlock more abilities. Then even if we run into danger, we can handle it. In the following days, I went out with the rescue team every day, hunting zombies together. The soldiers were highly professional and well-equipped. Working with them, we were way safer. We also killed more high-tier zombies, collecting crystals for spatial advancement. That day, we followed the rescue team to an abandoned mall to search for supplies. The mall was packed with zombies, and several high-tier ones among them. The fight wasn't easy. The soldiers and I cooperated seamlessly. I used the defense barrier to block the zombies' attacks, creating opportunities for the soldiers to strike. The soldiers focused their fire on the zombies. We got way more efficient. During the battle, I spotted a high-tier zombie with a purple premium crystal inside. This kind of crystal is extremely rare and greatly boosts spatial advancement. I immediately focused, activated the defense barrier, and charged at that high-tier zombie. The zombie sensed danger and lunged at me fiercely. Its claws whistled through the air, a ferocious attack. I sidestepped its strike and slashed at its head. After a fierce fight, I finally killed the zombie and grabbed the premium crystal. Just as I was about to feed the crystal to the space, I heard footsteps behind me all of a sudden. 3 big guys blocked my path. They wore tattered leather jackets, each holding steel pipes and machetes, eyes gleaming with greed. Judging from their outfits, they were probably from the safe zone, members of those survivor factions who prey on the weak. They were clearly eyeing my premium crystal. I gripped my machete tightly, watching them warily. I knew I worked hard for these crystals, and there was no way I'd hand them over. The leader was cocky, saying that around here, they called the shots. He told me to play it smart and hand over the crystal, or things would get ugly. With that, the 3 men charged at me. I wasn't scared in the least. I immediately activated the defense barrier. I swung my machete and met them head-on. With the space's defense barrier and my hard-earned combat skills, I quickly gained the upper hand. I drove them back repeatedly. The man in charge realized he couldn't beat me. His eyes turned fierce. He pulled a gun from his coat. He aimed it at me. He threatened me, take the easy way, or take the hard way. I was startled. I immediately ducked behind a pillar. Bullets slammed into the pillar. A loud bang echoed. Debris flew everywhere. Just then, the symbiotic space in my gut suddenly pulsed violently. It warned me it had detected a lethal threat. Spatial activity surged dramatically. New function unlocked. spatial teleportation. Enables short-distance teleportation. Each use consumes 2 high-tier crystals. My eyes lit up. I locked in immediately. I used 2 high-tier crystals and activated spatial teleportation. The next second, I teleported right behind the man in charge. Before he could react, I swung my machete at his arm. The blade struck precisely. The gun fell to the ground. The other 2 men were scared out of their wits. They turned and ran. I didn't chase them. Instead, I picked up the gun. Then I fed that premium crystal to the space. The space notified. 1 premium crystal fed. Spatial activity surged dramatically. Teleportation power increased. New function unlocked. Spatial devour. Can devour objects over a large area. Each use consumes 1 premium crystal. I breathed a sigh of relief. I put away my machete and the gun. I rejoined the rescue team. The soldiers saw the gun in my hand. They all looked surprised. The captain came over and patted my shoulder. He praised my outstanding strength for beating those thuggish faction members. I just smiled. I didn't go into detail about the space. I silently fell back in. Once we got back to the safe zone, I told Leo about the spatial advancement from the premium crystal. Leo was thrilled. He said the space is getting stronger. We'll never be scared of those bad guys again. I nodded in agreement. But deep down, I felt uneasy. Those survivor factions are so narrow-minded. They won't just let it go. They'll definitely come after me again. Plus, supplies in the safe zone are running low. And the rise in high-tier zombies makes the future uncertain. Sure enough, before long, those survivor factions came looking for us. A dozen or so of them came, blocking the entrance to our place. The leader was the guy whose arm I slashed before. He had a vicious look in his eyes, clearly here for revenge. I put Leo behind me and tightened my grip on my pistol. I stared them down coldly. I warned them to stay back, or I'd shoot. But the leader wasn't fazed. He sneered that this was the safe zone. If I dared to fire, soldiers would come running, and then I wouldn't get off easy either. He was right. Discharging a firearm in the safe zone is prohibited. That's a strict rule. I frowned, my mind racing for a way out. Just then, I heard soldiers' footsteps in the distance. When those survivor faction guys heard it, their faces changed. The leader spat out a nasty threat. He said we'd see each other again. Then he hurried off with his men. The soldiers came over, asking what had happened. I told them the whole story, exactly as it happened. The soldiers said they'd step up patrols in the area. They promised to keep us safe. We're safe for now, but I know this is only a temporary fix. Those survivor factions will definitely come back to cause trouble. I have to get stronger as fast as I can, while hunting for more high-tier crystals. I need to unlock stronger functions in the space. That's the only way to truly guarantee safety for Leo and me. The next day, I went with Leo and the rescue team to an abandoned research institute. Supposedly, this institute held a lot of data on the zombie virus, plus some experimental supplies left behind, which would help us deal with the virus later. The place was eerie and terrifying. Broken glass was everywhere, along with abandoned lab equipment. The air was thick with the stench of disinfectant and blood. It was sickening. We crept forward carefully. It wasn't long before we hit zombies. These weren't your average zombies. They were faster, stronger, and they even had some smarts. They knew how to attack in sync, which gave us a lot of trouble. The fight was intense. The rescue team's soldiers took heavy losses. Things were looking bad. I relied on spatial teleportation and the defense barrier to barely keep myself safe and struggle through the zombie horde with Leo. Just then, I noticed that deep in the institute, there was a sealed lab. My heart skipped a beat. Maybe there was something valuable in there, so I decided to go check it out. I gave the captain a heads up, and ran toward the lab with Leo. The lab door had a keypad lock. I tried a few common codes, but none worked. Right as I was about to give up, Leo pointed at something by the lock and said, "There's a fingerprint scanner." I followed his gaze, and sure enough, there it was. I figured I'd try it, so I put my finger on it. To my surprise, the lock actually opened. The lab door slowly slid open. It was a complete mess inside. Test tubes and petri dishes covered the workbench, each filled with a different colored liquid. They gave off an eerie vibe. I walked over to the bench and picked up a test tube of red liquid. Just then, the symbiotic space in my abdomen suddenly pulsed violently. Warning, unknown viral concentrate detected. It can be devoured and digested. May randomly produce a special item, but digesting it carries extreme risk. May trigger severe spatial backlash, or even cause me to mutate. I hesitated. Digesting the viral concentrate is extremely risky, but if it yields a special item, it might help us face future crises. And if these viral concentrates fall into the wrong hands, the consequences would be unimaginable. Leo grabbed my hand. He pleaded with me not to touch it, worry written all over his face. He said it was too dangerous. I patted Leo on the head, and told him to trust me. Finally, I took a deep breath, focused my mind, and let the symbiotic space devour the viral concentrate. The red liquid in the test tube was instantly devoured by the space. Then a violent cramping pain shot through my abdomen. It was stronger than any backlash I'd felt before. I collapsed to the ground in agony. My body convulsed all over. Chaotic hallucinations flooded my vision. Zombie growls, the screams of the lab staff, and Leo's shouts all intertwined. It felt like countless insects were gnawing inside me. My organs felt like they were being shredded. The pain was agonizing. Leo knelt by my side. He held me tight. Tears kept streaming down his face. He called out to me desperately. He told me to hold on. I gritted my teeth and endured. I refused to lose consciousness. Only one thought remained in my mind. I can't die. I still have to protect Leo. About half an hour later, the pain in my foot gradually faded. The discomfort in my body slowly eased as well. A golden pill floated out of the space. It landed in my hand. Digesting unknown virus fluid. Success. Randomly produced special item, antiviral serum. Randomly produced special item, 1 antiviral serum. It can completely wipe out the zombie virus in the body. It also suppresses high-tier viruses. Spatial activity greatly increased. Ultimate ability unlocked. Spatial domain. Can create an absolute domain within a specified range. Inside the domain, host combat power doubles. Zombie activity neutralized. Consumes 5 premium crystals per hour. I breathed a sigh of relief. I put the antiviral serum into the space. I slowly stood up. Leo immediately held me up. He choked. Thank God you're okay. I smiled and ruffled his hair. I told him we got something good. Now we can go out and meet up with the rescue team. We walked out of the lab and rejoined the rescue team. The captain saw we'd made it back safe, sighed in relief, said it was too dangerous here, and ordered us to evacuate right away. We followed the rescue team, carefully fighting our way out, and got back to the safe zone in one piece. Back at our place, I pulled out the antiviral serum and told Leo that this serum can get rid of the zombie virus. So even if he gets scratched by a zombie later, he'll be fine. Leo nodded and hugged me tight. So glad we were both safe. Just then, an alarm blared in the safe zone. A soldier's urgent voice came over the loudspeaker. Urgent announcement. A massive wave of high-tier zombies is hitting the safe zone. All survivors, please get to the perimeter wall right away for backup. Leo and I exchanged a glance. We both read the gravity in each other's eyes. High-tier zombies were besieging the safe zone. For us, this was no doubt a huge crisis. I immediately grabbed my weapon. I ran toward the perimeter wall with Leo. At the perimeter wall, the sight before us was terrifying. High-tier zombies were packed tight around the safe zone. They kept slamming into the steel perimeter wall. The wall was already starting to shake. It could be breached any second. The soldiers fought desperately, but there were too many zombies. They were quickly overwhelmed. The defensive line kept getting pushed back. The captain yelled for everyone to hold the line. He grabbed a machine gun and sprayed the zombies. He tried to hold back the zombie assault. I didn't hesitate. I burned 5 premium crystals right away. I activated the spatial domain. A pale golden illumination burst outward in an instant. It enveloped a large area outside the perimeter wall. The zombies within range suddenly slowed and stiffened. Their roars died down, too. The once fierce claw strikes hit the illumination. Only tiny golden sparks flew up. They couldn't do any real damage to the wall anymore. Seeing that, the soldiers' morale soared. The suppressed attack surged right back. The rattle of machine guns mixed with the sharp crack of machetes chopping bone. It drowned out the zombies' howls. A young soldier beside me speared a zombie through the head and shouted in awe at the illumination. But I couldn't afford to get distracted. My fingers were clenched around a few spare premium crystals. 8 premium crystals left. The domain will last an hour and 40 minutes. It will be forced to shut down if energy runs low. I had to end this fight fast. I gritted my teeth. I pulled 2 premium crystals from the space and held them tight, ready to replenish energy at any second. I scanned the zombie horde below the wall. Suddenly, I spotted behind the horde a mutant, a full size larger than a normal high-tier zombie. Its shell gleamed pitch black. It actually managed to somewhat break free from the domain's hold. Its claws slammed into the illumination with several times the force of the other zombies. The illumination shuddered with each impact, but the golden glow dimmed a little. System alert. High-tier mutant zombie detected with strong resistance. Spatial domain suppression effect weakened by 30%. Recommend devouring its remains. High probability of yielding high-tier items. I thought to myself, I had to take out this mutant zombie first, or the illumination would eventually be breached. I took the paralysis pill I'd gotten earlier and pressed it into Leo's hand. Then I pulled out a few low-tier crystals for him. I told him to stay put, leaning against the perimeter wall and not moving. If anyone comes near, throw the pill at them. You've got to protect yourself. Leo nodded firmly. His little hand gripped the pill and crystals tightly. His eyes were full of determination, telling me to fight without worry. Once Leo was settled, I gripped my machete, focused my mind to control the spatial domain, and deliberately enveloped the mutant zombie at the center of the domain. At the same time, I consumed a premium crystal to strengthen the localized suppression. The pale golden illumination suddenly contracted. The mutant zombie let out a pained roar. Its movements became noticeably sluggish. I seized the opportunity, and using the illumination as cover, I teleported behind the mutant zombie. This teleport went smoother than last time, and the space's energy consumption was also slightly lower. Clearly an upgrade effect from feeding it premium crystals. The mutant zombie sensed movement behind it, and whipped around, swiping its claw. I dodged to the side. My blade slashed hard into the gap in its shell. There was was a sharp crack. The machete was deflected by the hard shell. A numbing pain shot through my hand. This thing's defense is way tougher than a common high-tier zombie. Ordinary weapons can't break through its defense at all. Suddenly, the captain's shout rang out, warning me of danger on the left. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw 3 common high-tier zombies break through the soldiers' line, charging straight for Leo. My heart clenched. I teleported over instantly, activated the localized defense barrier, shielding Leo behind me. At the same time, I swung my blade and severed the lead zombie's neck. Crisis resolved. Leo's voice was teary, but he didn't panic. Instead, he quickly handed me the D-tier crystals so I could restore energy. My heart warmed. I took the crystals and fed them to the space without a second thought. 3 D-tier crystals fed. Spatial activity slightly replenished. Defense barrier strength temporarily increased. The barrier's golden light flashed for a moment, just in time to block the charge of the other 2 zombies. I took the chance to turn around and locked my gaze back on the mutant zombie. The mutant zombie is furiously slamming into the illumination. The illumination's glow is fading fast. It's clearly about to give out. I can't afford to wait any longer. I take a deep breath. I burn 2 premium crystals and activate the spatial devour function at the same time. A pale golden stream pours out of the illumination. It wraps the mutant zombie tight. The mutant zombie struggles violently. Its roar is deafening, but the stream keeps dragging it, little by little, closer and closer to me. The space warns me again. Devouring a high-tier mutant zombie may trigger violent fluctuations in the space. Risk of backlash. I don't back down. Clenching my teeth, bearing the dull ache in my gut, pouring every bit of focus into controlling the devour. The soldiers around me sense something's off. They close in, blocking the other zombies trying to get close, buying me time. 3 minutes later, the mutant zombie is completely consumed by the space. Inside my gut, a violent churning hits me all at once, even stronger than when I devoured Ray. For a split second, everything goes black. Leo quickly steadies me. Sobbing, he calls my name. I slump against the perimeter wall. It takes me a moment to finally stand steady. A dark gold diamond-shaped crystal drifts out of the space and drops into my palm. The space announces, devouring a high-tier mutant zombie successfully produced an armor-piercing blade. Can be attached to a weapon. Greatly boosts armor-piercing ability. Spatial activity has greatly increased. Domain suppression effect enhanced. Crystal consumption reduced by 20%. I was thrilled. I immediately attached the blade to the machete. The once ordinary blade instantly gave off a cold, sharp gleam. With this thing, dealing with the rest of the high-tier zombies just got way easier. I put away the dark gold crystal. I gripped the machete and charged back into the fray. The blade was indeed razor sharp. One swing could slice through a zombie's hard shell. Combat efficiency soared. The situation was gradually heading in a favorable direction. Just as the battle was turning in our favor, inside the safe zone, sudden chaotic shouts erupted. Someone yelled that people were looting supplies, screaming for everyone to stop them. I spun around. I saw a dozen or so men in leather jackets. They were the faction remnants I'd chased off earlier. They took advantage of everyone fighting the zombies. They had the nerve to raid the supply warehouse. They also took a few elderly supply guards and kids hostage, then bolted for the perimeter wall, clearly trying to slip away in the zombie horde's chaos. I was shaking with rage. On one side, zombies still needed mopping up. On the other, there were hostages. One wrong move and it would be a disaster. The captain saw it too. His face turned livid. He immediately ordered 5 soldiers to deal with the trouble inside. The rest were to keep holding the perimeter wall. But the soldiers left were already in bad shape. With 5 pulled away, the defensive line instantly buckled. A few zombies seized the chance to climb the wall and lunged at the soldiers. I gritted my teeth and decided. I told the captain to lead the soldiers and hold the wall. I'd go deal with the mess inside. Meanwhile, I'd keep the spatial domain up as long as I could, to buy them some time. Leo, stay in the safe corner. Don't move. Then I teleport in front of the faction remnants. The man leading them is the guy whose arm I slashed earlier. He's got a dagger in his hand. It's pressed against a little girl's neck. His face is twisted with madness. He's trying to use her as leverage. I tighten my grip on the machete. The armor-piercing blade gleams coldly. I give him a cold stare. I tell him to let the hostage go. If he surrenders now, he gets to live. But the man sneers and refuses, saying in this apocalypse, the only way to survive is to take. Then he shoves the little girl at me and lunges. At the same time, he swings his dagger at my chest. I sidestep. I teleport behind him. I smash the back of the blade into his skull. The man grunts and drops to the ground. His dagger clatters down too. Seeing this, the other remnants scatter and flee, but the soldiers who rush in quickly subdue them. I help the trembling little girl to her feet. I hand her to a nearby soldier. Then I hurry back to the perimeter wall. By now, the spatial domain's premium crystals are all used up. The illumination is completely gone. The remaining high-tier zombies are charging the defensive line in a frenzy. Several soldiers are already wounded and down. I immediately reach into the space and pull out the last 3 premium crystals. I reactivate the spatial domain. Although the illumination now covers a smaller area, it still covers the critical wall breach. But the golden glow holds the zombies back. My moves are swift and clean. This leaves them no chance to break through. I tighten my grip on the machete with the armor-piercing blade. I dart quickly under the cover of the illumination. The blade cuts through the air. The sharp swish mingles with the crack of zombie shells. The gap in the defensive line was torn open by the mutant zombies earlier. It is quickly sealed as we work together. The remaining high-tier zombies lose their core combat support and get wiped out one by one. The last zombie slams to the ground. The symbiotic space in my gut gives a slight tremble, signaling it has consumed multiple high-tier zombie corpses. Its activity steadily increases. The armor-piercing blade's compatibility is further enhanced. I sheathe the machete. I rush over to Leo. The kid is pressed tight against the wall, his little hand still clutching the paralysis pill he never got to throw. When he sees me coming over, his worried eyes instantly light up. He flings himself at me and wraps his arms around my waist. Wendy, you're okay. Thank God. I bend down to wipe the dust off his cheek and ruffle his hair. Only after confirming he is unharmed do I finally breathe easy. I keep him right by my side, and we head over to the captain together. The captain is directing soldiers to clear the battlefield and tend to the wounded. When he spots me, his face lights up with gratitude. Thanks to your miraculous illumination. Otherwise, the wall would have fallen. But then he switches gears, his expression turning grim as he stares into the safe zone. The supply warehouse takes a real hit, making our already thin reserves even tighter. And those remnants let slip that they've still got accomplices hiding in the safe zone. So this isn't just about supplies. My heart sinks. Looks like this crisis is far from over. There are forces behind those survivor factions. And now they've mapped out the safe zone's weak spots. They're gonna stir up way bigger trouble later. More importantly, activating the spatial domain just now burns through the last 3 premium crystals. The space levels up a bit, but our high-tier crystal reserve is nearly empty. If we hit another high-tier mutant zombie, we'll be in real trouble. I'll go check the supply warehouse. I tell the captain. Also, please keep an eye on the captured remnants. I need to ask them where their accomplices are. The captain nods. He immediately sends someone to take me to the warehouse. He also tells the soldiers to keep a closer watch on the prisoners. No one is allowed near them. I followed the soldiers to the supply warehouse. The scene before me was total chaos. Shelves had been knocked over. Food and medicine were scattered all over the floor. Quite a few sealed cans had been pried open. Water barrels were rolling everywhere. Our already thin supplies had been hit, nearly a third gone. The old man guarding the warehouse sat in the corner. His face was filled with guilt. When he saw me, he quietly apologized for not holding the warehouse. I helped him up and reassured him it wasn't his fault. Then I crouched down to inspect the scene. In the scattered supplies, besides the usual survival stuff, there were also a few metal badges that weren't from the safe zone. The badge was engraved with a twisted wolf head. The edges were covered with black rust. It was clearly the symbol of that survivor faction. I picked up the badge and put it into the space. I planned to look into the origin of this badge later. I returned to the temporary shelter. Leo was quietly sorting through the spare supplies I'd pulled from the space. Seeing me return, he immediately handed me a bottle of warm water. Wendy, we should stock up more, right? Now that the warehouse got hit, we might not have enough. I took the cup, nodded, and said, tomorrow I'll ask the rescue team to let us go out again. We can hunt zombies, scavenge for supplies, restock our crystals, and load up on more stuff. We might also find clues about that faction. That night, I slipped over to where they held the captives. The guards already had orders from the captain to let me through. The captured faction remnants cowered in the corner. Their eyes darted away. When they saw me come in, they all looked terrified. Clearly, they were still scared of me from earlier. I walked up to the leader I'd put down earlier. I towered over him. Coldly, I asked where his crew was and what the wolf head badge meant. The man was defiant at first. He wouldn't breathe a word. I pulled a high-tier crystal from the space. I gathered a wisp of spatial power at my fingertips. The crystal spun slowly in my palm. I know you want this. As long as you tell the truth, this crystal is yours. If you don't, I've got plenty of ways to make you beg for death. But you won't die. The space's energy made him tremble. He stared at the crystal. He wrestled with himself for a long moment. Finally, he caved. So this group is called the Wolf Shadow Gang. They were already forming before the apocalypse. After the apocalypse, they bullied the weak and grew strong by grabbing supplies. They've got branches in several nearby safe zones. The wolf head badge is their mark. This time, they grabbed supplies to deliver to their leader, who's hiding out in the abandoned factory outside the safe zone. And their leader supposedly has a copy of the virus experimental data from an abandoned research facility. He's about to trade it with other factions. The research facility. My heart skipped a beat. I pressed him if it was the same one I'd been to with the rescue team. The man nodded and said yes. Their leader had been to that facility before. He didn't find the original virus, but he grabbed some of the experimental data. He said that data could make even stronger mutants. My stomach dropped. If that data falls into the wrong hands, the consequences would be unthinkable. We need to find that factory fast. Get that data back. I handed the man a low-tier crystal. Then I turned and left. I walked out of the base. The night was deep. The safe zone was dead silent. Only the occasional footsteps of patrolling soldiers broke the silence. The space in my abdomen pulsed gently, as if echoing my mood. It hinted that if I got that data, I might unlock more spatial functions, or even wipe out the hidden virus threat for good. Back at the shelter, Leo was already asleep, but his brow was slightly furrowed. He must still be shaken up from today's crisis. I gently smoothed his brow, pulled the antiviral serum from the space and set it by the bed, then sat on the edge of the bed, quietly mapping out tomorrow's moves, planning to first report to the captain and request to take a team to the abandoned factory, as we had to get the experimental data back and wipe out the rest of the Wolf Shadow gang, while hunting for high-tier crystals to prep for spatial advancement. So early the next morning, I found the captain, and gave him the full rundown on the Wolf Shadow gang and the experimental data, every last detail. The captain's face changed dramatically after hearing this, and he immediately reported it to his superiors, with the approval coming back quickly to authorize the formation of a cannibal squad, which I was to lead to the abandoned factory to recover the data and eliminate the threat, while the rescue team would provide weapons and vehicle support. Before we set out, I left Suzuki with a reliable old woman, the grandma of the little girl I'd saved earlier, who was kind and very responsible, and I repeatedly reminded Leo to stay put at the shelter and not wander off, telling him that if there was danger, he should activate the space I left him, a feature unlocked after spatial advancement, that could transmit signals so I would come back right away. Leo nodded firmly and stuffed the paralysis pill into my pocket. "Wendy, you have to be careful, and I'll wait for you to get back," he said, as the team assembled quickly. All of them were battle-hardened soldiers, each equipped with top-notch weapons and protective gear, and we rode in a military off-road vehicle, heading toward the abandoned factory the man had described, which was on the outskirts, with the road littered with abandoned cars and zombie remains, clearly making it a danger zone. We stopped the vehicle a kilometer from the factory. We got out and walked, creeping closer to the factory. A high chain-link fence surrounds the factory. It's covered in scrap metal. The wind screeches as it blows through. Through the fence gaps, we spot a few zombies prowling by the factory gate. They're all high-tier zombies, and they're insanely fast. Clearly the Wolf Shadow gang left them as guards. I signal the team to take cover. Then I activate spatial teleportation, silently slipping behind the fence. Using a machete with an armor-piercing blade, I cut the fence open, carving a path for the team. We slip through the gap into the factory. Inside, the factory's a wasteland. Cracks spider across the walls. The ground is strewn with machine parts and zombie remains. The air reeks of blood and oil. I signal everyone to slow down. We sweep every corner. We stay sharp for any movement. The space in my gut suddenly screams a warning. It flags a violent viral surge. It's close, and it reeks of a high-tier mutant. We follow the viral surge. We arrive at a sealed workshop. The workshop door hangs ajar. Muffled voices drift from inside. I signal the team to get ready for battle. Then I ease the door open. The sight stops us cold. At the workshop center sits an experiment table. On it sits a laptop, clearly packed with the experimental data, several test tubes of purple liquid, and a tall man stood beside the table. It was the Wolf Shadow boss. 4 mutant zombies surrounded him. Each one, compared to the high-tier mutants we'd faced before, was stronger, their shells glowing with an eerie purple light. The boss caught the movement. He whipped around and saw us. A sinister grin spread across his face. "Didn't think you'd find this place. Good timing, my new pets need test subjects." The moment he spoke, he gestured for the mutant zombies to lunge at us. These 4 mutant zombies were incredibly fast. They could even ignore slight spatial suppression. Clearly, they were modified by the virus data. "Hold the door. Don't let him escape," I shouted. I consumed 2 high-tier crystals from last night's hunt to activate the spatial domain, but the golden illumination spread, and though it couldn't fully restrain the mutants, it slowed their movements considerably. The squad members opened fire immediately. Machine gun bullets rained down on the mutants, but on their shells, they could only leave shallow marks. I gripped my machete. I teleported behind one of the mutants. I swung the armor-piercing blade hard at its neck. The blade cut through its shell. Purple blood gushed out. The mutant roared in pain. It spun and swiped its claws at me. I dodged to the side. At the same time, I activated a localized defense barrier. It blocked its second attack. Then I swung again. I sliced its head clean off. A high-tier crystal glowing with purple light floated out of its head. The space instantly devoured it. Space. Devoured modified mutant zombie. Obtained a mutant crystal. Spatial activity surged. The defense barrier can resist virus erosion. I was thrilled. With this boost, I'll be way more confident taking on the remaining mutant zombies. But just then, the Wolf Shadow boss suddenly snatched up the laptop and ran toward the passage behind the factory, clearly trying to escape. "I'll chase him. You guys take care of the rest of the zombies," I shouted to my squad members. I teleported after the boss. When the boss saw me chasing, his expression changed. He pulled out a handgun from his jacket and fired at me. I activated the defense barrier. The bullets hit the illumination and instantly bounced off. Just as I was about to catch him, the boss suddenly turned around and threw a purple test tube at me, Since I can't escape, you're not getting off easy either. The test tube hit the ground. The purple liquid instantly vaporized into mist. With a pungent odor, the space immediately issued a strong warning. High concentration of modified virus mist detected. Recommend devouring and purifying it immediately. I didn't hesitate. I focused. Activate spatial devour function. A faint golden airflow surged out, wrapping up all the purple mist, and sucked it into the space. I felt a slight pain in my stomach, but there was no backlash. Clearly, after digesting the virus stock solution, the space's resistance to the virus has greatly improved. Space notification. Modified virus mist successfully devoured and purified. New function unlocked. Virus purification can eliminate viruses within a designated area. Each use consumes 1 mutant crystal. I had no time to think. I teleported in front of the boss. The blade slammed hard into his back. The boss let out a grunt. The laptop hit the ground. He went down. I grabbed the laptop. Once I made sure the data was fine, I put it in the space. By then, the fight in the factory was done. The squad was banged up, but no one was seriously hurt. We took out all 4 mutant zombies. Then we took the boss and the experimental data, and got out of the factory fast. Heading for the safe zone. Sitting in the vehicle, I watched the scenery fly by outside. I touched the paralysis pill in my pocket that Leo gave me. I felt completely sure. As long as we protect the data, get rid of the threats, Leo and I are definitely going to make it in this apocalypse. Back at the safe zone, the captain immediately sent people to deal with the wolf shadow boss. Meanwhile, the experimental data was passed to the experts. Word spread. The survivors in the safe zone all breathed a sigh of relief. They were so grateful to me and the squad. I rushed back to my place. Leo saw me walk in, and immediately threw himself into my arms. His eyes were a little red. I was so worried about you. I hugged him tight. I smiled and said, I promised you I'd come back. That evening, the space suddenly surged. Experimental data analyzed. Virus origin and evolution laws detected. Spatial activity has surged. All functions have been boosted. Ultimate buff unlocked. Host space symbiosis level hit 100%. You're immune to all virus erosion. The spatial domain range has tripled. Mutant crystal consumption has dropped by 50%. I froze. Then I broke into a smile. With this buff, Leo and I now have way more confidence in this apocalypse. But I didn't expect that only 3 calm days would pass before the safe zone broadcast blared another emergency alert. Word came from several nearby safe zones that ultimate mutant zombies able to break spatial suppression had appeared. The zombies are spreading toward all the safe zones. A new crisis is here. The urgent announcement was like icy water, instantly flooding every corner of the safe zone. The once settled atmosphere after the Wolf Shadow Gang's removal was ripped to shreds by extreme panic. I clenched my fists hard. The space in my abdomen trembled slightly, as if echoing this ominous aura. The ultimate mutant zombie can break through spatial suppression. Those words hit me like a hammer on my tightest nerve. The spatial domain is our greatest reliance for survival, Leo's and mine. If even this is broken, we're doomed with no place to even be buried. Then, Leo's voice came with a barely noticeable tremor. He gently tugged my clothes from behind, his little face missing its usual calm. I immediately turned and pulled him tightly into my arms. My palm resting on the top of his head, my voice as gentle yet firm as I could manage. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Even though the space has been breached, we still have the purification ability and the defense barrier we can definitely hold. Even so, I had no real confidence in my heart. The zombie that broke through spatial suppression is nothing like the modified variants we've seen before. Their appearance might signal the ultimate evolution of the apocalypse virus. Before we could say another word, a massive explosion suddenly sounded from outside the window, accompanied by roars and gunfire from all sides. I immediately picked up Leo, hurried to the window, and pulled back the curtain to look out. The perimeter wall of the safe zone had already developed several huge cracks. 3 mutants, twice as large as ordinary high-tier zombies, were battering the wall frantically. Their outer shells were pitch black, with a metallic glint. Their limbs were covered with sharp bone spurs. Each impact made the wall tremble, and rubble clattered down. Even more alarming, one of the zombies actually passed right through the spatial interference barrier the soldiers had set up. One swipe of its claws sent 2 soldiers flying. Black-purple corrosion instantly spread over their wounds. It was an ultimate mutant zombie. They can go straight through low-tier spatial barriers. The captain was shouting frantically downstairs. Then, there was heavy gunfire and the roar of grenade explosions. I didn't dare delay. I put Leo in the safe spot at the edge of the space. This was the exclusive domain unlocked after the spatial symbiosis level maxed out. It could isolate all external dangers, but each activation only lasts 2 hours, and it consumes 1 mutant crystal. Just stay here quietly. Don't move, and don't come out no matter what happens outside. I'll be right back, I told him firmly. Seeing Leo nod with tears in his eyes, I hardened my heart, turned, and rushed out the door. The hallway was packed with panicked survivors. People shoved each other as they scrambled downstairs. Some cried out, looking for their relatives. Others fled in panic, clutching their supplies. I pushed against the crowd and hurried toward the perimeter wall. Along the way, I kept activating localized defense barriers, shielding the fallen survivors behind me, and holding off the occasional common zombies that rushed in. By now, the perimeter wall was on the verge of collapse. The wall breach on the left was crammed with zombies. 3 ultimate mutant zombies were taking turns charging the defense line. The soldiers' bullets hit them, leaving only shallow dents. They couldn't penetrate the shell at all. Instead, this thoroughly enraged them. They roared and quickened their attack. "Everyone, fall back. I'll hold them off," I yelled. At the same time, I took out 5 mutant crystals from the space, and infused them all into the spatial domain. A pale golden illumination expanded instantly. It covered 3 times the previous area. It enveloped the entire wall breach. This time, I deliberately reinforced the density of the spatial domain. Gold light rippled along the edges of the illumination. I tried to trap the ultimate zombies with the strongest spatial suppression, but the 3 zombies only froze for a second. Then they let out a piercing screech. A black-purple glow enveloped their bodies. They actually withstood the illumination's suppression. They pushed forward step by step. The illumination's golden light visibly dimmed. Even tiny cracks began to appear. So it really can break through. My heart sank. I gripped the machete with the armor-piercing blade. I teleported to the side of the lead zombie. The blade gathered all the spatial power and slashed hard at the base of his neck. That's the weak spot on every zombie. Even if they evolve to their ultimate form, they shouldn't be able to fully block it. With a sharp crack, the blade struck the zombie's shell and bounced right off. The impact left my arm shaking and numb. The webbing between my thumb and index finger started to split. The zombie whipped its head around. Its blood-red eyes locked onto me. It swung its bone spur claws at me. It moved so fast it left only a blur. I immediately teleported back, barely dodging the blow. The claws slammed into the ground, instantly carving 3 gashes nearly 2 feet deep. Before I could steady myself, the other 2 zombies lunged at me at the same time. Caught in a 3-way attack, I could only keep teleporting to dodge. The spatial crystals were burning up way faster. Within just a few minutes, 3 mutant crystals were completely spent. The illumination's pressure plummeted. The common zombies at the gap seized the moment to flood in. The safe zone's inner defenses were on the brink of collapse. "Captain, take your people and hold the inner corridor. Don't let the zombies hurt the survivors." I kept teleporting to avoid the ultimate zombies' attacks, while shouting into the walkie-talkie. The moment I said that, the zombie on my left suddenly sprayed a glob of black-purple venom. I quickly activated the defense barrier. The venom splashed onto the illumination, hissing as it corroded. The barrier dimmed by more than half in an instant. In that opening, the zombie on my right leaped up, its claws slashing hard at my shoulder. I couldn't dodge in time. I could only raise my arm to block. My suit shredded instantly. Bone spurs tore into my skin. A searing pain shot through me. The wound blackened fast. From the space, Leo shouted frantically, "Wendy." I could feel him hammering desperately at the space's walls, but he was helpless. The virus raced through the wound. My limbs were going numb. My teleportation was slowing too. Seeing this, the 3 ultimate zombies attacked even more wildly. The illumination shattered completely. A zombie's claw slammed into my chest. I was thrown backward. I slammed hard into the perimeter wall. I spat out a mouthful of blood. Just when I thought I was done for, the space exploded with intense golden light. A warm current surged from my abdomen. It wrapped around me in an instant. The pain in my wound faded fast. The black-purple corrosion marks gradually faded too. Space alert. Host hit by ultimate virus erosion. The symbiotic space activated its ultimate defense. It consumed all mutant crystals, temporarily unlocking the space's materialization ability. Then, countless golden blades surged from the space. They rained down on the 3 ultimate zombies. The blades pierced their shells. They buried deep into their bodies. The zombies let out agonized shrieks. Their massive bodies crashed to the ground. I used my machete to push myself up. I looked at the fallen ultimate zombies. Just as I was about to breathe easy, the ground suddenly shook violently. At the distant horizon, a massive dark zombie horde was closing in fast. In the lead was a zombie bigger than the previous 3 put together. Its head was covered in tumorous lumps. Its eyes were blood red. Its limbs were as thick as stone pillars. Every step crushed the rocks underfoot. Thick black-purple mist swirled around it. It was clearly the leader of the ultimate zombies. "It's the Zombie King," a soldier's terrified voice crackles over the radio. "His presence is over 10 times stronger than the previous ultimate zombie." I look up. The Zombie King is under a kilometer from the safe zone. With a casual wave of his hand, the zombies around him, as if on command, charge madly at the safe zone. There are so many they could overrun the entire safe zone. But now, my spatial crystals are all gone, and my manifestation abilities only unlocked temporarily. I've got 1 attack left, at most. No way I can fight a horde this huge. "Everyone, fall back to the safe zone core. Seal all passages." The captain roars the order. The soldiers begin an orderly retreat. At the same time, they ignite the pre-placed explosives. trying to hold off the zombie horde. Explosions go off one after another. Flames shoot into the sky, but they only slow the horde down for a moment. The zombie king continues his steady advance. Wherever the black-purple mist passes, even the flames of the explosives are snuffed out. Even the vegetation on the ground instantly withers and rots. I teleport to the entrance of the safe zone core, watching the horde close in. Only one thought in my mind. I have to hold this place. Protect Leo. Just then, the space suddenly trembles again. Leo's voice comes through clearly in my head. Wendy, I can feel the spatial power. I can help you. I freeze for a second, then it clicks. Leo's had a faint sensitivity to spatial power since he was a kid. Back when the space advanced, his presence resonated with the space. Maybe he can help after all. I immediately opened a passage into the space and carried Leo out. Kiddo's face was full of determination. Not a trace of fear. He reached out his little hand and gently pressed it against my belly. He whispered, Wendy, focus, just follow my lead. There's still residual energy in the space. We can activate it together. I nodded, following Leo's lead. I focused all my mind on the space's interior. Sure enough, in the deepest part of the space, there was still a faint trace of origin energy. It was the core power of the space's symbiosis. Leo's little hand was glowing with a faint white light. It intertwined with the spatial power inside me. The two powers surged through our veins and poured into the depths of the space. The origin energy blazed to life in an instant. A burst of golden light, far more powerful than before, erupted from the space, engulfing the entire safe zone core. This time, the illumination wasn't just defensive. It carried the power to purify and devour. When the black-purple mist met the golden light, it was instantly purified into nothingness. The zombies at the front also melted away in the golden light, turning into puddles of clear water. The zombie king sensed the threat and let out a furious roar. The mist around him thickened in an instant. He hurled himself at the illumination, trying to break through the barrier. Now, Leo and I shouted together, gathered all our power, and unleashed the spatial origin. The golden light condensed into a giant pillar. It shot out from the top of the illumination and slammed hard into the zombie king. The beam pierced through his body, pinning him in place. The black-purple mist kept being purified. The zombie king's body shrank before our eyes. It finally turned into a wisp of black smoke and was utterly devoured by the space. With the zombie king dead, the remaining zombie horde lost its leader and fell into chaos, dissolving away under the purifying golden light. When the last zombie disappeared, the golden light slowly receded and retreated back into the space. As Leo and I both collapsed, clinging to each other, we were soaked in sweat, our bodies and minds completely drained. But seeing the survivors around us safe and sound and seeing each other unharmed, we smiled, glad to be alive. Word that the crisis was over spread fast through the safe zone, as survivors came out of hiding, cheering and embracing each other. Some fell to their knees, crying, while others bowed deep toward us, and the captain hurried over to us, crouching down to help us up, his voice choking with emotion as he said, "Thank you. You saved everyone." I shook my head and looked at Leo beside me, smiling and saying it wasn't just me, that we did it together. Over the next few days, the safe zone threw itself into rebuilding, as soldiers cleared the battlefield and repaired the perimeter wall, and survivors helped each other gather scattered supplies. The once ravaged safe zone gradually came back to life, while Leo and I recuperated in our temporary shelter. After the space devoured the zombie king, its origin energy was greatly enhanced, not only fully healing my body but also unlocking a new ability, as spatial nourishment could boost plant growth and purify soil and water sources. This ability undoubtedly brought new hope to people in the apocalypse. A week later, the safe zone's reconstruction is basically complete. The perimeter wall's been reinforced even stronger now. We've also added a spatial warning barrier. Anytime a high-tier zombie gets close, it'll raise the alarm right away. Meanwhile, thanks to my spatial nourishment, the safe zones opened up a patch of farmland. The first batch of vegetables has sprouted tender green shoots. Clean water, purified by the space, keeps flowing to the survivors. Once, we survived only by looting and scavenging for supplies. Those days are finally gone. One afternoon, Leo and I sat on the grass by the farmland. We watched the survivors bustling about. The sunlight fell on us, warm and cozy. Leo leaned on my shoulder, toying with a crystal. It was a common crystal he'd just taken from the space. He said softly, "Wendy, we won't have to fight anymore, right?" And I squeezed his hand. Looking up at the clear blue sky, I smiled and nodded in agreement, saying there would be no more fighting, that this place would only get better, and that we could live here in peace, while the space rippled gently nearby, as if agreeing with my words. After this last crisis, the bond between the space, Leo, and me has grown even deeper. It's no longer just a tool for fighting and storage. It's more like family to us, our rock in the apocalypse. And those viruses that once ravaged everything, purified by the space's origin energy, have gone completely dormant. In the abandoned cities around us, even small animals are starting to appear. The plants are slowly coming back too. A few months later, the safe zone was now a small, thriving village. The fields were full of ripe crops, and sturdy homes had gone up. Kids ran and played in the sun, while the adults went about their work. Smiles, long unseen, lit up every face. Leo and I had our own little house now. Our yard was full of plants, all thanks to spatial nourishment. Every time the flowers bloomed, the whole yard smelled of flowers. Someone asked me once if I'd use my spatial ability to explore further out, to find more survivors. I shook my head. I looked at Leo beside me, then at this vibrant village around us. This is our home, I said. Having the people we want to protect is all we need. The apocalypse brought us so much pain and separation, but it also taught us to cherish and hold on. Leo and I lived through countless life and death trials. Finally, on these ruins, we found our symbiotic haven. At night, Leo and I would sit in the yard and watch the stars. The space gently surrounded us, casting a soft golden glow, wrapping us in warmth. Leo slowly fell asleep in my arms, a sweet smile on his little face. I looked down at him and my heart was at peace. This long, cruel apocalypse was finally over, but our new life was just beginning. For the rest of my life, I'll always keep Leo safe, and protect this home we fought for with our lives. No more danger, no more goodbyes, just peace and happiness. As the horizon began to glow, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves, spilling into the yard, and falling on Leo and me. The breath of the space mingled with the morning breeze, gentle and serene. I knew this was the best ending we could ask for. After all the storms, we finally see the rainbow. With the ones we love by our side, the years pass in peace.